goals that we set for them at the beginning of the year, and each week as we update those. And then the other thing is, connectedness with the school. What we preach and what we teach at the school is being connected. Substance use disorder, addiction, what we used to call addiction, and some people still do, depending on what room you're in. But substance use disorder really is a disease of isolation, right? It separates us from our peers. It separates us from our community. It separates us from other supports we may need to help us be successful. And ultimately, it separates us from everyone except for the substance itself, and eventually is fatal, as we know. So connectedness, obviously, is the antidote, at least a part of the antidote to substance use disorder, and we really spend a lot of time on that. We do a lot of activities that require or encourage the kids to connect with each other, connect with staff, and we do a lot of activities where we go together as a group to the ice cream shop across the street. We're down in Springfield at 23 West 8th Street, corner of 8th and Main, in the West Side Church of Christ, right in the heart of Springfield. We love it there. And right across the street from us is a brand new ice cream parlor, which is awesome. The kids were there yesterday, and they love that. And we also do, we have a running team, we have a basketball team, and we have a football team. We do art class, we do music class, and we do yoga as a way to get the kids connected in various ways to the academic process. It's not just about books. Because at the end of the day, I can't help you if you're not there. And so if we can make the place attractive and enjoyable to them, they will come. If they come, we can help. And you guys all know that, but that really is the challenge, especially when you're working with adolescents. And so our adolescent population, 14 to 19-year-olds, come to us with a substance use disorder of some kind, mild or moderate, usually. We do different clinical tests to determine where they are on the spectrum, trying to figure out ways to help identify if we are appropriate for them, and if we are, how we can best help them. And as a result of that, the kids all get a full clinical workup as well as an academic workup, and we create an academic treatment plan and clinical treatment plan that are combined into one working, living document that stays with that youth while they're with us, and we help them develop along the lines of that working document. All of you know this, I'm assuming, but the examples of symptoms of adolescent substance use, I won't bore you with this, but I will tell you one of the interesting things I always love about this, and I work with, I'm an adolescent counselor. I'm a certified addiction counselor and board certified, and I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm fortunate enough to where I get to work in the courts as a subject matter expert in the area of adolescence, and I also serve on the state Behavioral Health Association as a subject matter expert in the area of adolescent behavioral health and substance use disorder. And I would say one of the things that's always exciting and funny to me is if you look at DSM's definition of what constitutes a substance use disorder, and if you look at this, the first thing you realize is most teenagers act like this anyway. So it's very difficult to look at a teenager and say, oh, you have this, because a lot of these behaviors could just be normal teenage adolescent challenges. And so when you're working with a youth, it's really important, and I think beneficial to be careful with labels. So we try very hard not to label any of our kids. Certainly not. Certainly we don't do it, and we don't come with a diagnosis, because we do. But the diagnosis may or may not be all that helpful to the youth. And so if we can help that youth without giving them another burden to carry, such as addiction or substance use disorder or whatever other label that might be put on them, I think that's helpful. So anyways, so you guys know all that. What are our objectives? Okay, so identify barriers. Our kids come with a mountain of them. I mean, I know you guys, anybody who works with kids knows that, the barriers to our kids everything from food insecurity, housing insecurity, out-of-home placements, living in group homes. Many have been involved with the juvenile justice system. You know, we look at drug-specific information. What kind of drugs are you doing? What have you done? There's just signs and symptoms, of course, of their substance use. They struggle with communication, the responsibilities of, you know, of their own behavior. You know, a lot of them are not. A lot of teenagers aren't very good at that, anyways. And if you have a kid that grows up in an environment where personal responsibility may not be modeled very well, it's very difficult for them to achieve that on their own. And we introduce them to community resources, positive alternatives, and we work towards graduation. Those are all very important aspects of our program. Some of our group topics, we look at alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, ATOD, as that's often called. We work on through yoga, art, poetry, music, to try to help provide alternatives. And we're going to talk about another program that we instituted this month or this year. We're very excited about regarding those things. Now, I'm not looking in the chat, so if anybody's asking questions, you know, if you are asking questions, please ask questions. I'm going to wrap up here in a few minutes, and I'm hoping we get a chance to ask a lot of questions. Certainly talk about signs and symptoms of abuse, including signs and symptoms of overdose. And all of our kids are trained on how to use Narcan, and they all have Narcan that they can take home with them. In the event a family member or someone close to them is in need of that, they have Narcan, or at least they could have Narcan at their disposal, and they know how to use it. Work on communication skills. Again, we talked about the alternatives to drug use, community resources. Relationship abuse, we were working with the One Love Foundation. We're actually now working with another group. But One Love and the other group are very similar in the fact they talk about safe dating practices, you know, honoring your significant other in the relationship, how to look for signs of abuse, et cetera, and we work on that with the kids. And then we have a parent group that meets every week. This is our gender makeup. As you can see, it's almost split down the middle, which is very exciting to us. And our race makeup, African-American is a predominant race. We have the other being Caucasian, and then a very small portion, which is growing, is Hispanic, which is not race but ethnicity, but it is important to make that distinction. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And so this just talks about treatment being important and the continuum of care. As you know, our continuum of care, especially in the adolescent space here in Jacksonville, is, you know, it needs some help. And so we look at being a gap between an adolescent who may get some help at school, may, although not often, able to afford private counseling, which is very seldom, or they end up in inpatient treatment. And there's a huge gap there, as you know, and so we try to fill in that gap in the recovery school by providing a lot of outpatient services. And you should know that we do not charge our participants or their families anything to be a part of the school or for any of the activities that we do. We pay for all of that out of our pocket. So, so this just talks about some of the deals with treatment and how effective they are, but they're, you know, we need more than just that. So how are we similar to the recoveries? What kind of school? Grades 7 through 12. We are currently associated with a program that we just kicked off this year, academic program, that is a blended program that offers our youth over 20 pathways to graduation through various tracks that are created in other school systems. They have access to those. And we also offer vocational certificates as well through our graduation program. They also get the GED if they need that. We offer group and individual counseling, group activities, drug testing, and it's all integrated with the academic program. So there is no other program. It's all together. Who can come to the school? Really any kid where you feel that substance is involved in what they're struggling with. If there's a issue going on with them, whether it's a family issue or themselves, and it feels like substance may be a part of that, we would love to talk to them and see if we can figure out a way to help them. So any student 14 to 19 and desire to stay absent that wants to finish school, Where do they come from? They come from the school system, juvenile justice system, other treatment centers. Family members are self-referral. And in the screening, we have a variety of tools that we use. And our model is primarily built around an aftercare model. And we have a license in prevention and a license in intervention from the Department of Children and Families. These are some of the numbers in which we operate, and I'll make these slides available, but effectively about 64% of our kids that come through our program make significant improvements, stay in school, and reduce their drug use significantly. Many become abstinent, which is wonderful. Over half become abstinent and stay that way, at least through graduation, based on the numbers we get. We do a quarterly phone poll to check on our kids, and these are the numbers based on the kids that we reach, and I'll share this with you guys. Our code of conduct is based on restorative justice and the principles behind the 12 steps. We look at harm reduction as well as an integrated approach to academics. And then, so this is a new program, and this slide is terrible. Please forgive me. This slide it did not translate as well as I thought it would, but essentially we've instituted an alternative peer group at the school, which begins at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and goes until 6, Monday through Thursday. Alternative peer group is a evidence-based program that's been around since the 70s, and essentially it's exactly what it says. You know, adolescents in school, if they decide they want to change a behavior, maybe they're playing football and they want to join the math team. Well, that's going to be very challenging because the math kids may not be very welcoming of some athlete who may have picked on them for the last 2 or 3 years that suddenly decides he wants to be in the math club. And conversely, if a math student who's very good at that, not much of an athlete, wants to join the football team, they may, you know, not be all that welcoming to that youth. And so that youth has a choice to either push through that and try to make a go of it, which is very difficult, rejoin the group they came from, which they don't want to do, obviously, or be on their own. And the same is true with substance use, only the difference is substance use could be, you know, certainly fatal, but at a minimum will cost you performance in school and could cost you, you know, your education. And so we look at the standpoint of, if I have a youth that wants to leave their peer culture that is substance involved and join an alternative group, that's very difficult. And so this alternative peer group creates that environment. So this program is for youth 14 and up. They do not have to be associated or enrolled in the school, although they can be. It provides a full array of activities, both athletic and non-athletic. We even have we have 4 video game stations where the kids play 2 PlayStation and 2 Xbox, I think. I don't know, something. But we have those. We have the games. And once a week the kids play video games, and once a month they have a video game contest. See who does whatever, and there's prizes, and they get to do something with that. But the point is, can we get you to come hang out with us for 3 hours every afternoon during what are arguably the most dangerous hours of a kid's day, between 3 and 6, when they're out of school and mom and dad have not gotten home yet, or the adults in their lives have not yet gotten home. And so if we can occupy their time during that time, we want to do that. We provide them with a hot meal during that time. We provide them with, like I said, lots of activities. We try to do a field trip once a month, and this is all free. It doesn't cost the families or the kids anything. And again, it's open to 14 and up. We provide job training. We provide on-the-job placement. They can get a job. We can help them with training for that job. We can even provide some offsetting funding for the employer who might decide to employ them. We can also provide English language learning, conversational English, as well as English as a second language training for youth and adults. And so we do that at this program. And we kicked it off at the beginning of the month. We have over 20 kids that are actively involved in the program daily. And we hope to have, at a minimum, 30 kids come into this program on a daily basis, and we're getting close to that number. And like I said, it's only been a few weeks old. And it's really showing some very good promise. And so we're very excited about it. And this does act as a way for folks to gain access to clinical support, because we do provide counseling, individual, group, and family counseling at this alternative peer group venue. And that, again, is also free of charge. And so if you have a youth that needs support, that is doing okay, so to speak, in their regular school or wants to stay in their regular school, or is finished with school, maybe they got their GED or they graduated, they can come to this program and get supportive services at no charge. And so we want to be that provider, if we can, for your youth. And so that is something that we're very excited about. And then the next one is something that really is a program that is really much bigger than the school and much bigger than you know, there's a lot of people even on this call maybe that are a part of this effort. Several months ago, I was putting together a proposal for a funding opportunity and came across a statistic that I've since shared with several people, because it's not even believable unless you see the statistic and you can track it back. Duval County has the dubious distinction of being of possessing, if you will, the highest population of adolescent heroin use in the country, and that group is Hispanic females. Of Hispanic females nationally, Duval County has the highest utilization of heroin of that group. Now, that's not every group, that's not every kid, that's not every color. That's Hispanic females. And as you probably know and are aware, that population is growing. Hispanic population is growing. It's going to continue to grow, and it is a target-rich environment for predators. Most of the folks in that population are reluctant to come forward if something is happening to them for a lot of reasons, some founded, some not founded. They are certainly, some struggle with the language. They're routinely underemployed, undereducated, and lack adequate services. And so for some, drug use becomes an alternative. But what's really more alarming is these young women and men are being trafficked at an alarming rate. And that's really what the heroin, we believe, is all about. The heroin is used as a way to drive the control of the population and push them into trafficking. And so we have joined with the Northeast Florida Trafficking Task Force. We've joined with this association here. We've joined with the Juvenile Justice Probation folks, as well as the Office of the Sheriff and the Office of the Mayor, and the Kids Hope Alliance, to target this group. And we put together a social worker who is Hispanic, a community activist who's also Hispanic, and another peer who's Hispanic. And this team goes into the community now, almost door to door, speaking with families, and we are currently working with 30 families that are struggling with this, offering them education, English language learning, drug and alcohol counseling, and we are trying to really aggressively go after that group of young people. And we feel this is going to be a very rewarding and fruitful endeavor, but it's not without risk, and it's not without a lot of work. And so we have a great team of young people that we hired to go do this and to work in this area, and so far it seems to be, like I said, bearing fruit. So, that, this is some of the methods that we're using, going into the community directly, working with some of the community leaders, identifying what they call the mayor in each community, and working with that person to help us identify and support folks that may be struggling, develop plans around those discoveries, have meetings in the community with small groups, trying to develop relationships with them ongoing, and then develop programs and services as identified through those meetings to help those in that community. With the goal being to reduce the heroin use among teens, increase school attendance, decrease delinquency and other crimes, and provide access to families and youth. It says here, the lieutenant community for many years have feared justice system because of abuse of power and immigration status. Again, the credibility of the community will depend on their leaders cooperating. And we can work with youth regardless of status. And so we are currently a provider that can assist a youth that may be how they're classified now as status unknown. And so, again, if you have a youth that you feel may fit this category, please give us the opportunity to meet with them and see how we might be able to help them. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up and see if you want to have any questions.
Dan, thank you for all this information. And yes, there is a question in the chat box. It is from Ray Cortez in Lake County. His question is the percentage of Black youth in the recovery school proportionate with the corresponding age and race population enrolled in the targeted schools? And Dan, did we lose you? Dan, I see your message. We will look at it from our end. In the meantime, while Megan tries to put Dan's mic on, do any of the attendees have additional questions? If you do, feel free to put them in the chat box. So once we get Dan back, we will have him answer the question. All right, Dan, do you want to check your mic? Megan said that you should be able to talk.
It looks like he might have gotten kicked out of the call. So I'll be back.
If for some reason Dan does not come back, Ray, we will definitely email him your question and have him answer your question via email. While we try to get
Dan,
Dan
we
back.
see that you're logged back in. Are you able to call in or speak? I guess you'll take that as a no.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. I'll just make a quick announcement while we're trying to get Dan back. So next Tuesday on September 28th, our guest speaker is going to be James Lyle. He comes from out of state. So during the pandemic, it's great that virtually we can have so many great speakers that are outside of our area. So James is from Truth and Kindness Counseling. He's a licensed mental health counselor, and he's going to talk about the intersection of drugs with trauma. So please, if you can join us next week, we would love to have you. And I just want to do a shout out to Susan Jackson. I met her son, James Lyle is her son. I met him at one of her coalition meetings. And so I'm excited that he's going to be able to join us. Dan, can you hear us? And can you try to speak? All right, since we can't get Dan back, I will adjourn this Tuesday at 2. Dan is saying it won't let him call in. So again, Ray, we will send him your question electronically. If any of the attendees have additional questions for Dan, please email them to me and I will forward them to Dan. And with that, everyone have a great afternoon.